the searchers I seek, the wisdom that they speak, the lessons that they teach, just a searcher like.
Welcome to El Camino de Santiago Pilgrims podcast, where we talk about planning, preparation, and packing for walking the road to Santiago, as well as tips, tricks, and hacks to make your journey along the way a lot more enjoyable. This week, we are talking to an American pilgrim, Michelle Lessard, has walked the Camino Frances and had such an amazing time that she decided to form and found her own Camino coaching company when she came home. That company is called the Camino Concierge. So, Michelle, just before we launch into the interview, would you be kind enough to tell the listeners a little bit about Camino Concierge?
I would love to. And Brad, thank you for having me on. This is such a delight to be a part of your podcast, and I'm such a fan. The Camino Concierge came to light while I was walking the Camino. Something that is true to my heart is travel and educating and training. And so after I walked the Camino and I learned so many lessons, I just felt this would be a great site to have. It's kind of a one-stop shop site where you could learn all about the Camino. And I planned for the Camino in 3 days, and that's honest to God, and I can give you that story later, but I was just dazzled by all the sites that were there, but I was also so confused. And I wanted to provide something that was in one location for people. Now, I'm still building it, so forgive me, I am still building it, but there's a lot to come. In addition, I am very active on the social media sites, so you'll find me at Camino Concierge. I love featuring other pilgrims, so if you're walking or if you have a site that you would love to be featured on, just ping me or tag me on Instagram, and I would love to feature you. I do a Friday follow as well, and just make sure that the whole world knows about the Camino.
So it was a way for you to mix all of your passions into one place.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I am a software trainer by trade, and I have wanted to be, this is kind of funny, since I was 5 years old, I wanted to be a teacher, meaning love to educate and help others, and a flight attendant, which meant all I wanted to do was travel the world. And it is documented since I was 5 years old.
Okay, so we look forward to hearing more about how you've fulfilled that ambition, and I guess part of that ambition was the Camino as well. So tell us about traveling the world, So tell us about how you first heard about the Camino, why you decided to take the plunge and go and walk 500 miles across Spain.
And, in America, we did not know a lot about the Camino. I had the great pleasure of living in your homeland in England in about 1998 through 2000. And a lot of my business was over on the continent, and I was able to do a lot of business in Spain. That's how I learned about the Camino. And then I just kind of put it in the back of my mind of, this is something I definitely want to do. Fast forward several years, I was in a position after a contract. It was grueling. I was traveling across the U.S. every single week. And I just said, okay, I'm done with this project. And I just healed myself in Lake Tahoe is where I decided to go for a summer and just do a lot of hiking because my heart and soul just grows when I'm out and hiking. And I had Netflix, and there was a movie on there that I kept, I don't know what this is, but I had it in my favorites. And I kept ignoring it until October. Just at the beginning of October, I'm like, all right, God, I will open up this video. And it was The Way. And it was just about 1 or 2 years old, hadn't really gotten a lot of traction yet. And I watched it and I said, and, the Camino calls you, and it called me right then and there. 3 days later, I was on a plane going to St. John.
And the Camino also called you during the time you were in England and you were doing a bit of business in Spain. So I'm intrigued as to what piqued your interest back in those days when you were doing a bit of business in Spain about the Camino.
When I was, well, it was colleagues, because of course I was working with a lot of people in Barcelona. I also went to Porto for business, and every single person I met in both of those places had said, have you heard about the Camino? And they were sharing stories about it. They either had worked or had friends or family that had walked it, and they had started sharing stories about this life-changing adventure, something that you do with just what's on your on your back and just walk. And you can talk to God, you can talk to yourself, and it's about the human condition. It's about just living life. And so they share these intriguing stories with me, the grueling parts, the tough parts, but also the joyous parts. And I just heard that and said, I love culture. I love meeting people from all around the world. This was one place I could do it in one sitting. And it just intrigued me at that point.
All of those boxes ticked right there on the Camino.
Definitely.
So, you mentioned that you decided to walk, and once you made the decision to walk, you went in 3 days. So, I'm going to ask if you can put yourself back to that exact day, and were you to be packing your backpack now, what would you take with you? 3 most important things aside from the obvious.
Well, what I did bring then, and I would still continue to bring because I know myself, is I'm a gadget girl. I love my Swiss Army knife. I brought that thing, and it's called the camper version, and it's just brilliant because it has the tweezers, the knife, the bottle opener, the scissors, and of course the most important, wine opener. So that was number one.
Priorities.
Absolutely. And some people would ask, well, how did you get that on the plane? I actually checked. I checked my bag, actually. I had it in a backpack duffel, and I checked it. I have traveled for 30 years all over the world, and I just have confidence that it would follow me and get me there. So if people are concerned, you can pack a separate box and just, of things that would not be able to go on the plane, and then you can carry your backpack with you. Number two, the good old duct tape. And I actually ran out of duct tape on the Camino. I was known as the duct tape girl. I would wrap my feet constantly with duct tape because I wanted to make sure not to get blisters. And with that, I ran out. So I scrambled around and asked people, what is this in Spanish? And it's cintas americanas. So that's what I learned, and I eventually found in Corrion a hardware store, and I was able to buy some more. So that, and then I would say for myself, it's hiking poles, and there's, divergence. So, people are on one side or the other camp of poles. For myself, it was necessary. I've done a lot of hiking, a lot of running, and a lot of tennis. And my knees, I was afraid that would suffer for 500 miles, 800 kilometers. So I brought my hiking poles. I actually had the kind that are alpine version, meaning it had the spikes because it really gripped going on the uphills. I was like a billy goat, just going very fast up those hills. And I also had made sure, here's a little tip, get cork handles because the plastic handles will just make your hands sweat. So they gave me stability because of that heavy pack on my back, and also they cushioned my my knees on the downhill. That was very important to me.
Sounds like that hiking experience stood you in good stead and was it helped you to be able to pack all the things you needed in 3 days. And I'll just run through those 3 things you chose again. Swiss Army knife, for many reasons. You mentioned the most important one being the bottle opener, as well as the tweezers and the scissors and everything else. So you got to taste that vino tinto or the Rioja while you're on the way, or the wine in the Bierzo region, should I say. The duct tape, cinta americana in Spanish. The hiking poles as well, alpine hiking poles, and cork handles, so there's less sweat on your hands. So sounds like you were prepared, but sometimes nothing can prepare you for walking 20, 30, 40k day after day, 30, 25 days in a row. And I know I had certainly made some mistakes during my first few days that I wouldn't make again. Was there a mistake you made and you'd advise others to be aware of?
Well, two things. One, okay, I bought those hiking poles literally a few days. I had never used them. So here I am the night before my walk in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, and I am watching YouTube videos on how to use hiking poles. Very, very comical. And then as I walked down the street going towards the Francis route, I was twisting my poles and they all fell apart. I did not even know how to use them. Sheer panic on my face. A gentleman saw me, came right over, did not speak a word of English, knew exactly what to do, taught me how to use my poles, how to screw them on correctly, and then carry on. So that would be one thing, is practice with your equipment. The other thing would be is when you are hiking, if you can get not only just flat hiking and do a lot of walking, but make sure you're getting some elevation in there. That's quite important that you learn about the elevation climb, so your body gets used to that, going up and down, as well as if you can get to any higher elevation, because obviously the oxygen gets less. I didn't really notice it there. I've walked places like Machu Picchu. Obviously, that was an impact on my body, but that is helpful to do elevation. And along with that elevation, have your pack on your back and have it weighted, or a weight vest. That was my big mistake. I had never, ever hiked with a heavy pack on my back. And the one thing I found is my feet flattened, and that's what caused my blisters. That's the only reason why I got blisters, is my feet flattened so much that they basically outgrew my shoes, and my shoes were proper sized. So it was something I was not aware, and I would definitely give tips on.
Okay, so let me quiz you on a couple of things. When you say proper sized, what would you describe that as?
Proper size, typically in athletics, they always say a half size bigger of what you wear. I would recommend for the Camino, especially if you haven't walked with a heavy pack, a full size bigger.
Okay, and you said test drive your equipment, whatever equipment that may be, whether it's your walking poles, so you're not looking on YouTube the night before and then smashing them in the street in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, and some elevation training as well, which obviously if you're going to do the hike from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port to Roncesvalles the first day, that's going to be a big test. And like you said, you also get used to the thinning of the oxygen, less oxygen at altitude as well. So that's some good training for you there as well, to be prepared for that. And that your mentioning of blisters brings me neatly on to my next question, actually, which would be foot care routines.
Well, my routine, it was my morning routine: get up, get ready for the day, pack my pack, and then I had this very methodic and intimate process of wrapping my feet. Because here's the other tip. When I followed the John Brearley book, I started on a Tuesday. If you follow that book and you start a Tuesday, every time you hit a big city, it's Sunday and everything is closed. So don't start on a Tuesday if you want to try to really enjoy some of those big cities. That's just what the timing was for me. So it took me almost halfway to be able to buy new shoes. So in the meantime, as I had the blisters around the sides of my heels, I did everything I could in this wonderful tradition of putting on Vaseline and putting on duct tape, and I had sock liners, and then I had my regular socks. I did not use wool because I'm allergic, but I used a synthetic wool from a camping store. So that was something that I did to help. And then, of course, at breaks, take those socks off, let your feet breathe during the day. And I brought along not flip-flops, but I brought along hiking sandals. So they were multiple uses. One was the use in the shower, Two was the use where I could have those at the end of the day. Now I walked the Camino in autumn, so it was a little cooler. So having open flip-flops would have been kind of cold. So I was able to wear my socks in my hiking sandals. And then I also probably walked a good quarter of the Camino in those sandals with or without socks. And that really helped my feet get through the process.
You sound like the perfect Camino coach, Michelle, because you're saying some great stuff, and I'm actually learning things from you as well. And I love what you said about the hiking sandals instead of flip-flops, because I've walked the Camino Portuguese in December, and I know when I finished walking at the end of the day and I put on flip-flops and I walked around town, my feet were absolutely freezing. So the hiking sandals serve for many different ways, being in the shower, and obviously to use at the end of the day to give your feet some air. And your foot care routine was Vaseline, then wrapping up in duct tape, and then using sock liners and socks off during break to give your feet some air. So some really, really useful stuff there. And first time pilgrims are going to be lapping this stuff up. So thank you so much. I'd like now to talk about some of the difficulties of the beginning, such as blisters, such as getting to use the walking pole and knowing your equipment. So I'm going to ask you, and the reason I want to try and include this question in every interview now is because I although this is, and you said it yourself, a life-changing experience, it's not all roses and moonshine along the way. There are some bumps and bruises. You do get caught in some nettles along the way. So I'd like you to talk about potentially, and this wasn't on the crib sheet, the pre-interview crib sheet that I sent you, but it just struck me today that I need to start asking this question more. A low point on the Camino and how you got through it, and how others can mentally rehearse from the turmoil and get out of it and get themselves to a better place mentally, because I know I had some bad times in the first few days as you adjust to life on the road.
Yeah, and I think there was a couple things that I hit on my Camino, because the Camino, especially if you do 1 month, and it could be 1 week, it doesn't matter how long, or 3 months, however you walk your Camino, it is life compacted in that period of time. You get the joys and the highs and the lows, and the lessons all the way through it. One thing that really hurt me was ended up being my feet. Thinking I was going to have the challenges with my knees, it was my feet, and it was because of my shoes being too small. Eventually, because of the flattening, that really, really brought me to my knees. And but it created such special moments, and what I call those moments is Camino angels. You just let people love you. And so at those low times, there was a time I remember, Puerto La Reina, and I'm horrible at Spanish, so my apologies.
Not at all. Not at all. You sounded good. You got the Cinta Americana very good. And so you mean Puente la Reina, right?
Yes, my junior high Spanish teacher would be very pleased. There was one night I remember we were there. And we met a bunch of ladies and had some dinner at the hotel there right when you enter town. And they were staying in the albergue in the basement, which was quite serene and lovely. And she knew about my blisters, and she said, "Come on down." And she went down and she sat on a chair. I sat next to her. I literally put my foot in her lap, and she tended to me. It was almost like Jesus being anointed by Mary on his feet. And I just sobbed. And she was using the European way of putting a thread through the blister, and just sitting there and tending to me. And so the one thing when you are physically in a pain is let people love you. Another moment was a full day of walking. I walked into a town, and I always call these little villages, these Spanish villages, especially in the middle of the day, it felt like walking into that empty town in Wizard of Oz. All the doors and windows and everything is shut. Like, where is everybody? And I walked into this town, and I just followed a yellow arrow, and I found an albergue, and the door was open. And I walked in, and this gentleman, he was actually American. He saw my face. he came right up to me and he just put his arms around me and hugged me. And I thought, wow, it was just that, those hard times of letting people love you. There was also a moment, and this is quite personal, but I realized I was going and learning lessons about myself about abandonment. There was moments where a couple friends that I'd really got to know on the Camino decided that they were going to take a bus and go a little further up so they could enjoy a few days in Burgos. And I was so determined to walk every step of my Camino. And I felt abandoned. I felt lost. I felt like, oh my gosh, they left me. But I just carried on, and it was a great lesson I call it my lesson from God, to say, you aren't abandoned. You are there. You are still surrounded by pilgrims, and you are walking alongside with me.
And for what you're saying is when you do experience those hard times on the Camino, there's always going to be pilgrims around, like you said,
Yes.
to love you. So there's going to be Camino angels flying in when you perhaps least expect it. And it's your fellow pilgrims that get you through it.
Absolutely. And, I am glad that I only had 3 days to prepare for this Camino, literally just that. No backpack, no sleeping bag, no poles. I did it all in 3 days. And I'm glad I did that so I didn't over obsess about what to bring, because the Camino will provide along the way in the right time when you need it. I mean, I even bought brand new shoes on the Camino. So I think I was glad that all happened that way, because I could have been so obsessed, and I allowed the Camino just to provide to me when I needed it.
Fantastic. I mean, this kind of theme comes up again and again and again during the interviews, and it's so true that this is what the Camino is all about. And for those who haven't walked it, they maybe think we are exaggerating a little bit, but once they're on the Camino, they'll actually realize it's the norm, not the exception. And this is the reason, or one of many reasons, why people just return again and again and again and again. And I think it reminds me of Bob Scheitz, who's a effervescent, lively fella, really inspirational guy. And he's one of my interviewees a couple of episodes back, and he said, he's walked across America, he's walked around America, he's walked here, there, and everywhere. But he said about the Camino, there's something going on, man. And I really like that. I really, really like that. So there is something going on, and that something is pretty special, though it's really hard to define and grasp and touch. And it's hard to touch it and it's hard to see it, but you can certainly feel it. There's no doubt about that. And you did mention, sorry, it sounded like you were going to say something there, Michelle.
Oh, no. Carry on.
Okay. And you did mention a positive experience in an albergue there. So we are all looking for hidden gems, magical places to stay along the way. So feel free to tell us your favorite albergue, or your favorite hotel, your favorite lodging.
Well, there's one albergue I wish I experienced, and that was in Grignon. And I believe you were there as well.
Grignon is amazing.
I heard about that, and I was so disappointed. It was one that I missed.
Right. Yeah.
So next time it will be on my list. However, I was in Santo Domingo the night before, and that was just as an amazing experience. So kind of weighed it out. In Santo Domingo, I just went to the local confraternities sponsored, and it's donativo, meaning it's it's just donation. And the reason why it was such a great experience, had multiple floors, but there was one floor that had a big common area. And in that common area, it was all wide open. It was a wide open kitchen and a bunch of tables, or long picnic type tables, and then tons of couches. And it just flocked everyone into one location. And that night, what was so great is it was literally a battle of the chefs. And it was the Brazilians versus the Spanish versus the Italians, and all these men were having a cook-off in the kitchen. Then we were all enjoying the food, and then we all kind of moved over to the leather sofas, and a couple pilgrims had brought their guitars, and they just sang, and we just sat there and had fellowship all night long. So I got a similar experience, and I would say Santo Domingo, that was a fantastic place. Word of caution, when you are in that albergue, the chicken coop, the famous rooster that is the tail in Santo Domingo, the chicken coop is right next to the albergue, and it does wake you up early.
Could you explain a bit more about the chicken coop? Because I'm not familiar with this.
Yes, it's a story about this boy who was traveling, and I might butcher this, so please forgive me, that was traveling, and him and his family were traveling, I believe, on their pilgrimage through the town, and he kind of fell in love with this local girl, and then there was something happened, and there was something stolen, and they blamed it on the boy, and so it was some silver or something was stolen, and they blamed it on him. And so they were basically going to hang him. And, his parents were upset and everything, and they were about to hang him. And then it's just a story about the chicken. This rooster saved his life. Again, I'm so butchering it. I actually wrote about it in a blog. So I will please, you go and look at my Santo Domingo site, my Camino de Concierge site, because I have a whole story about that.
So for the
rooster and Santo Domingo.
Of the rooster in Santo Domingo, go to caminoconcierge.com, click on blog, and the entry about Santo Domingo, and you can entertain yourself with that. And thanks for giving us a little extract from that, Michelle. The albergue was the Confraternity albergue in Santo Domingo, and it's a donativo, which means you donate what you feel like you can afford, and you had one of those nights of camaraderie and fellowship, which is very similar to the experience that you get in Grañón as well. And in fact, you can find that anywhere along the Camino at any time, without a doubt. But that's one place where you definitely get it. From a favorite albergue to a favorite city, town, village, maybe hidden gem, must see somewhere along the way.
Well, there was two things. One extends off of the places to stay. Something that I did, and I needed to do it because sleep was so important to me. Your body is so resilient, and it really heals itself overnight. So I stayed every 3 or 4 days in either a private room or a casa rural, which is kind of like a little bed and breakfast, or in a big city, a hotel. And I did that on purpose because even earplugs didn't work for me and the snorers. It was just, I'm a light sleeper. So the one town I really enjoyed was León. And yes, I stayed at the Parador, which is in the movie The Way. And it was pure luxe. It was delicious. It was yummy. It was wonderful. I had my clothes professionally cleaned, and I took 2 bubble baths. I was loving life. The architecture in León was amazing. A lot of Gaudi, a lot of architecture. I would have liked to have gone back and spent some time. And the other city I really enjoyed, I just felt the vibe, was Logroño. I loved Logroño. Walking into that town, it had a central pedestrian-only path area, tons of food and wine. Albergues were very nearby or on that street, and it just had an amazing vibe in that town, and I would love to go and check it out again.
It's funny because, first of all, just talking about the Parador in León. And so if you want a little bit of treat yourself to a bit of luxury, just probably 3/4 of the way, more or less, along the way, then that could be the place for you to do it and reward yourself after going so far and making it that far. And I think, I'm going to come clean here, Michelle. I know on my first Camino, I was a bit of a pilgrim snob, and I'm not proud of it, but I can say that I've opened up my thinking, and that was one of my negative points, something I needed to improve about myself. But I was walking thinking, I'm just going to stay in albergue because this is what a Camino is all about. It's about roughing it. It's about taking a step outside. But, as I kind of evolved in my thinking, I realized actually it's great to treat yourself to a bit of luxury along the way, here, there, and everywhere. And I will kind of ask you a bit about the dilemma of hotels versus albergues, because there's something that you gain something, and you lose something when you do that. I feel like you gain the luxury, but you sometimes lose the camaraderie, which is a big loss. But you do get a good night's sleep again, which can be, really good to recharge the batteries. So I'll ask you your opinion on that. But when you say Logroño, I mean, who thought Logroño would be that kind of place? The only time I'd ever heard of Logroño was the football team, really, or the soccer team. And Logroño, my night there, my evening there, was the day I decided I wanted to move to Spain, because I felt that vibe as well. The same vibe you're talking about. Logroño has something, don't know what it is, but you see, maybe because it's the first big city that you kind of encounter along the way, and you see life in Spain as as you see everything that's good about it. You see the families strolling along the street, arm in arm. You see the grandparents holding hands with the grandkids. You see how united the Spanish family unit is. And it's not something I'm used to seeing, being from southern England, and the cafes and the terraces, and the vibe is electric, I would say. Really, really loved it. And that was the reason I wanted to move to Spain. I'm now back in England, but that's outside of our control anyway. But let's ask you about your opinions on hotels versus albergues.
Well, one thing that I definitely told myself, because I am naturally an introvert, and that's only because that's how I gain my energy, is being alone. And so I knew that about myself, and I knew that that was how I could recharge my batteries. So that was something I had to be aware of. But I also said, because I don't know if you knew, but Andrew McCarthy had written a book, and he's, the actor in America, and he had written a book, I think it's called A Long Way Home, and part of it was the Camino. And I found an excerpt, and I read that on the internet as part of my planning. And something that he did is he wouldn't talk to anyone at first, and he kind of stayed closed off. And then eventually he started opening up, and it changed his Camino experience. And I just made sure not to be that introvert during the day, and I love people, and I loved the fellowship, and I actually enjoyed the fellowship at the end of the day. But go all in. Go all in. Now, if the Camino is one where you're going to do it alone and alone only, that's totally fine, and that's great for you. For me, there was moments I was alone, and there was a couple days I was completely alone. But I made sure to go all in and talk to pilgrims along the way, talk to them at breaks, and always, always, always made plans for dinner. So having that in the whole day, being surrounded, if I wanted, with my Camino family, as well as having those dinners, then just scuttling off to go to sleep was no big deal.
Like it. So that's the way you found the balance. I really like that. Because if you do spend your nights in hotels, you are missing out on those nights of fellowship, like you mentioned in Santo Domingo. And like you said about Andrew McCartney, once he opened himself up to other pilgrims, it enhanced his experience and enriched his experience. So I think those who have never walked the Camino before and are thinking about doing it, it's something to really make a conscious effort to include in your approach, to take that approach, to be sociable as much as possible. If you feel comfortable doing that, obviously not to force anyone to do that, but you may surprise yourself with what you'd get out of it. And talking of books, that brings me neatly onto the quick fire round, where the first question is, and you may have already answered it with the book you mentioned before, a favorite Camino blog aside from your own, which is Camino Concierge, or book?
Well, as far as the book, I definitely was Brearley. Another book, and Brad, I'm saying this just because it is fabulous. It's your book, The Only Way is West.
Read it.
I
Thank you.
truly loved your book. You have such a sense of comedy as well as openness and vulnerability in that book, and I just love it. So highly recommend yours, The Only Way is West.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. The other one that I really enjoyed was by Kevin Codd. He's a priest, and he wrote To the Field of Stars. I actually had it on my iPhone.
I love that title as well.
Oh, It is. And by the way, when you go into the cathedral, you see the stars. There's some stars up there. There's like a picture or monument type of thing that's up on the wall. So you have to look for that. But that book I actually read while I walked. So after the end of the day, you wash your clothes, you shower, you get on your clean clothes, and you have some downtime before pilgrim dinner. I would journal. And I actually journaled on my iPhone. And then I would do a little reading, and I would read that book by Kevin Codd. It was fantastic to read at the same time I was walking it.
Do you use a Facebook forum, a Facebook group or forum? And would you recommend one?
Yeah, I did use Ivar's forum, and what is it called? It's the Santiago Camino forum. It's like the main forum. Ivar.
CaminoDeSantiago.me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was really the only thing that really existed when I planned. Went to 2013. There wasn't apps. There wasn't tons of guidebooks. There was nothing. And that was really the only forum. There are some pros in that it's a wealth of information. There are cons because you ask a question, you get 500 answers. And it kind of just spun my brain, which is why I decided to start building my own website, because I was just getting too many opinions and was overwhelmed. But I do love that site. And then my friend Lee, who I've met, Lee Brennan, who I believe you also know, she has Camino Cafe, and I've joined that. And that's what's so great about the meetups now. So I just joined and met the Santiago American Pilgrims group in Austin, and I joined a meetup just a couple nights ago there, which was fun. So those are the things I'm doing. I'm going onto their sites, and then I'm finding out if they're having also Zoom meetings, as we call them nowadays, and I'm just meeting people everywhere. We're sharing our stories, and that's one of the ways I'm keeping the Camino alive.
Could you recommend a Camino vlog or film aside from the way?
One film that was absolutely amazing, and I have a personal experience with it, although the gentlemen don't know, is I'll Push You. And that was a movie that was a few years back was put out, and was two American gentlemen, and they both wanted to walk the Camino, but one was wheelchair bound. And his best friend said, "I'll push you." And he literally walked the Camino and pushed him. It is an amazing, amazing movie to watch, because the gentleman who was pushing felt like he was going to push it all the way, and that was it. And eventually his body started breaking, and it was watching him give up and let pilgrims love him. And you would see series of pilgrims pushing this wheelchair. It was an absolute beautiful movie about the Camino and about the human condition. The personal aspect is a side hobby that I love is producing movies. And one thing I do is volunteer for the Phoenix Film Festival. That movie was submitted, and I was a pre-screener. And of all things, there was dozens and dozens of us. It was assigned to me, just randomly. And I did everything I could to get it in. It unfortunately didn't get in that film festival, but it did in a bunch of others. So I got to see that movie. I was crying the whole time I was watching it. A, it just got served up to me, and B, it's just an incredible film.
One thing you wished you'd packed?
Well, one thing, it's a fail of mine. One thing that I did, and I like to share with people, is here I am, I'm running around 3 days at our camping store called REI. And I am running around this recreational equipment place, and I'm like, okay, 3 things. If I can get these sorted, I am on my Camino. And it was a backpack, and of course my flight, which I did get, and my sleeping bag, because my sleeping bag that I had was since I was a little girl in Girl Scouts, and it's a little girls group in America. I'm like, okay, that's not going to work. So I went and bought this sleeping bag, awesome sleeping bag, the lightest one I could find. It was only 1 pound, literally only 1 pound, scrunched up, very tiny. Well, what I didn't realize is it was an alpine. It was good for freezing weather, and I didn't connect the dots that I'd be sleeping inside places. I just sweated. It was horrible. It was like a sauna. So what I wish I had done is had a light sleeping bag and a silk liner, and then that would help you for either warm weathers or if it got a little more chilly in the higher elevations. So that was what I wish I had brought.
One thing you didn't need and wouldn't take again.
Okay, this is personal, but PJs, pajamas. I had brought a set, and that was the first thing that went in Roncesvalles. Pilgrims leave things for each other, and they leave them in the albergue, and they're just set out, and someone else can pick it up. And I'm like, it was too much weight, and so I got rid of it. And ladies, don't be shy. You can sleep in a top and just your underwear. So I'd go into my sleeping bag. I'd quickly take off my hiking pants, and I just pop right into the bed. And we're family. It's all okay.
One place you wish you'd stayed over and would if you were to go again.
I think we talked about it. It was Logroño.
Oh,
Yeah, I just
Logroño,
wish
right,
I could have had
yeah.
it. Yep. I Logroño. I wish I could have stayed there for a couple days and just really soaked in more of that town.
A guilty pleasure, perhaps, aside from the pajamas that you carried with you.
Well, there was two things. One, and this is a tough thing for ladies out there. You're going to want to bring your makeup, and you don't. Okay. Matter of fact, I did bring makeup, but when I was in St. Jean, I had some extra set of clothes, some other shoes, and my makeup, and my hair dryer. And I put those in a box and went to the post office and shipped them over to Santiago. And Ivar on his website has a fantastic service where for just a few euro, he'll hold those for you, and you can pick them up at the end, as well as the Spanish post office. But the one thing I couldn't give up was just my tinted moisturizer. So I said it was moisturizer, but it was also tinted. It was just something as a lady I did, and I just felt a little more pampered and special. It also had sunblock in it. So, I justified it. So that was one little special thing I did. The other is I had this long sleeve shirt. It was from the sporting store, but it was textured and laced, and it was kind of my going out, my evening shirt. And it didn't weigh much, but it was that little piece of luxury that I had for the evenings.
Hardest part of the Camino.
I think not necessarily the physical part, because your body is so resilient and it heals. And after that first week, if you're going to walk like the Francis route, your body adjusts very, very quickly. I think it was the mental and the emotional part for me that was a little harder, that I had to go through and kind of battle my own demons. That was the hard part, and I had ample time to think through it and to journal it and to pray about it. So I think that was the hardest for me. It was the mental and emotional side.
Your favorite thing about the Camino?
I think the biggest thing that the Camino has given me is such a global family. Just the people we get to meet. Now knowing you, Brad, my friend Lee, all my Camino brothers and sisters that I walked with. And by the way, there was such a tight group that we got to know when I walked, that one, on the arrival of the Camino was the eve of my birthday, and we all celebrated my birthday that night, and it was just a fabulous, fabulous time. But a group of us, it was about 9 of us, actually had a Camino reunion in Paris the next year, which again was my birthday, and I was turning 50, and I flew there. I flew for a long weekend in Paris to be with my brothers and sisters, celebrate a very important birthday for me, and just reminisce and talk and just continue our relationship. So that was what I truly got out of and loved the Camino.
I mean, that's a really, really nice Camino story there, the way you were so tight after you left and you had a reunion on a big personal milestone for yourself. And what we like to do in every episode, because one of the things that's so captivating about the Camino is these encounters, these things that happen on the Camino that probably won't happen or so rare in everyday life, and like we've said before, like we touched on before, actually become the norm on the Camino. So I'd like to ask you about, maybe you did tell us a little bit of a story about when the guy in the albergue just gave you a hug, and when that lady was tending to your feet. But I wonder if you can go into a bit more detail and tell us a Camino story, something that embodies everything that's good about the Camino. And for those that are maybe not convinced, they're not sure if it's for them, they could be swung by it and think, that's the kind of experience I'd like to have.
So there's just so many, but I remember 2 points of the Camino where I met pilgrims walking the opposite way. And there was one situation where a gal, I think she was from Germany, I was walking alone, she was walking towards me, we stopped and we smiled, and she said, "Yeah, I'm a pilgrim," but she had no pack. And I said, "Really?" I go, "What are you doing?" She said, "Well, I have a friend here and she's sick and I'm staying these extra 3 days with her. She's actually in hospital and I'm staying here waiting for her. I'm by her bedside. I am not going to carry on my Camino unless it's with her." And I looked at that and I just almost started weeping. The other gentleman that I saw was also walking towards me, and I do remember him. And his name was Sam, and he was from the U.S. And he was just walking towards me, and I was on the canals going towards Fromista. And I'm like, "What are you doing, Sam? What are you walking this way?" He said, "Well, I have a friend several towns back. I'm going back there so I can carry his pack so he can walk with me." And it's just those moments where people just give. It's where people are just loving, they're kind, they're just humans to each other. And unfortunately, there's lots of times right now going on where people aren't. And it's that you just get to experience the true human condition of the way people really are on earth for. They're here to help each other, to love each other, to be kind to each other. So those were 2 moments that just really struck me.
And I think those two stories that you shared there emphasize the point that we've said many times on this podcast as well, is the Camino brings out the best in all the pilgrims, and the people you are meeting are often the best versions of themselves. And that's why it's so special. And that's why you get such a good feeling from people. I mean, there's a phenomenon called mirror neurons, which is, I guess if people aren't familiar with it, it's just that I heard about on like a health podcast a little while ago. It's like you feel the energy of what you are looking at. And if you're looking at someone having the time of your life, you feed off that. And that kind of energy, it just pinballing between everybody you meet. And it's just like electricity just flying from one person to another, and positive energy and like lightning, we're all firing good lightning at each other. And that's exactly what a great way of proving that is actually happening. And I was going through kind of I still am in many ways, but in my own spiritual searches, that's one of the reasons I wanted to walk the Camino. And I had been looking into something called Raj Yoga, and this is a very extreme. I didn't subscribe to it 100%, but I like to listen to different points of view and different teachings from different religions and philosophies. And this is a very extreme yoga. And the fundamental tenet is that someday the planet will be full of enlightened souls. And it's going to be like a golden age, and everyone you meet is just going to be nice. The world's going to be a great place. And to me, the Camino de Santiago is that place. I felt like I'd found that golden age on the Camino. I was like, well, this is what they were talking about. Everyone's so nice. And I think this is one of the reasons why you feel that Camino warmth, and you drop your guard. The guard you have up in everyday life, you drop it, and I love it. And these stories that you share just exemplify that perfectly, and remind me that that's why we all keep going back, and I want to get back there as soon as I can. And one of the biggest challenges, I think, is going from the golden age back to quote unquote civilization.
Mm.
How can you advise people to make that transition as smooth as possible and just not a real tough crash back down to earth?
Yes, that was it was surreal to actually be in a car again.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was surreal because you're going a few miles an hour walking, and all of a sudden I was in a vehicle. I'm like, oh my gosh. So that was one of those biggest surreal moments. One thing I did, and it's a tip that I like to share, is number one, I gave myself an extra day at the starting. Also, because I'm flying across the Atlantic and a lot of time zone changes. So I spent a whole day in Saint Jean Pied de Port, just really getting acclimated, but also hanging out in the Pilgrim office, exploring the town, and so on. So it got me set. And it got me in a way where I didn't just rush off a train or a plane or bus and just hit the ground running. It allowed me to slowly get into the process. Then at the end, because I actually sped up my Camino, my body really started getting strong. So in Burley's book, I believe it's 33 days, but I got it done in 30. So I had all these extra days in Santiago. And plus I had some buffer days as well. So something I did there, you're still on the high of the Camino because you get to see all the other pilgrims coming in, and you continue to have pilgrim dinners and festivities. So it's a slow transition out because it's a transition where I spent several days there and not having to get up and do my morning routine of duct tape and pack my bag and move along. I stayed in one place. I actually did stay in a hotel. I splurged. And so there was that slow transition of breaking that daily pattern, that repetition of a daily walk from one place to another. And then I did take the bus to Finisterre and went that way and spent some time a day there, ended up seeing more of my friends showing up. So I did that. Now I had I had a pilgrim brother who actually went to Muxia and spent 3 days there all alone. And he just journaled and tried to basically consume what he had just bit over the last month. So that was one thing he did. The other thing I did is when I did fly back to the States, I did not go back to work right away. I had the luxury. I was a consultant, independent, had my own company. So I spent a few extra days and weeks. And by the way, I got home. It was holiday season anyway. We were popping into American Thanksgiving and then the Christmas season. So I took that time to really, really decompress and do that. Not everyone gets that opportunity. But another thing that I did as well is I continued to hike. I made sure to keep my body strong and made sure to continue to hike. I listened to the same music that I listened each day on the Camino and kept that alive, but it also let me kind of slowly transition back into life.
What I got from that was three main things. Time to absorb. I love the fact that the guy had journaled about it, and time to take in what you've just done, the enormity of it, perhaps to some people. I know it was just like that for me. I actually had a bus journey from Finisterre to Barcelona, which was like 16 hours, which allowed me to do that. And like you said, it's very strange when you're in a moving vessel again after you've been powered by your feet for so long, and quite unnerving in many ways. So take time to absorb if you've got the luxury of that time. Like you said, don't go straight back to work. If you can go home and just slowly immerse yourself back into everyday life, that's really, really useful. And I found that it's useful to set intentions as well. Any changes you might want to make to your life, and you can actually move things around in your life to make that happen. And keep hiking as well. I love that. Keep hiking, because you would have got yourself into such great physical shape on the Camino. you can capitalize on that and build on that by keep hiking. Like you said before, your body adjusts so quickly, so fast, and your body surprises you with what you can achieve and how far it can go and what it can actually endure. And I love the fact that you actually felt you were going to build on that and keep hiking. I want to circle back in a little bit to the music, but now, Michelle, I'm going to, just before we finish, you were so kind to send me some potential additions to my question list. So I might well be incorporating some of these in the coming weeks, but I'm going to put you on the spot now and unleash a few of these on yourself. So, great Spanish products you discovered.
Okay, there's two. And back in those days, we didn't have anything like Compeed. That did not exist in the US. Our Band-Aid brand is starting to come out with something like that, but that was the most amazing thing I'd ever found. So definitely Compeed, especially when you have a hot spot, you feel it starting to rub on your shoe or on your foot, definitely put some Compeed there and you are protected. Don't take it off, shower with it. It just sticks like glue. Amazing stuff. And they have all different sizes and different angles and so on. The other thing that I found, this is crazy, but the pharmacy, going to the pharmacy was a blast for me. And I love going to drugstores and pharmacies and also, like makeup stores and things, because I love to see all the different potions and things that the countries offer. But the sleeping pills in Spain are amazing because they don't give you the hangover the next day like the ones we get in America over the counter. And that really did help me literally shut my brain off, shut down, so I could heal overnight. So those were two things that I thought were absolutely fantastic that I discovered there.
3 words that describe your Camino, Michelle.
Resilience, growth, love. And there's a phrase I like to share, and I read this once, and I always keep it in the back of my mind. And it's 3 words, but it's a sentence. It says, travel conquers fear.
I like it. Someone said to me recently, because I was moving back to the UK, a change is good as a rest. So something for everyone to talk about. And I think it's kind of related to the travel conquers fear as well. What surprised you most about yourself on the Camino?
The one thing that I've really, as I mentioned, I'm an introvert normally because that's how I get my energy. But I also like to be alone. I'm not afraid to be alone. I go to cinema alone. I've traveled. Bless you.
Excuse me.
I've traveled the world alone, and so I'm okay with that. I'm very strong on that. I've been business traveler alone. But what I really enjoyed and look forward to that I was surprised was the pilgrim dinners and the fellowship at the end of the day. That surprised me, that I truly savored that and looked forward to that as much as I did.
Now, something new, just to finish with, going to play word association. I'm going to shout or throw some words at you. I think I've just scribbled down kind of 5 words, 6 words, and you can give me a word back which you associate with that word or place. Okay, so you're my guinea pig for this one, Michelle.
Cool.
Let's do it. O Cebrero, the highest point. No, sorry, that's not the highest point on the Camino. That is a big mountain in Galicia. O Cebrero.
1 word?
Yes, or a couple.
Okay. Freedom.
Beautiful. Cruz de Ferro, the highest point on the Camino.
Probably it's also freedom. I left my rock and I was free at that moment of insecurity and fear.
And that's the place where you leave behind a past burden, a rock as a symbol of a past burden. Santiago de Compostela.
Joy and fellowship and celebration.
Snoring.
Martin.
Okay.
He was a German, and he even introduced himself. I am the foghorn of the Camino, and it was Martin.
Martin, bless you, sir. Thanks for introducing yourself and giving yourself that moniker. We had a guy called the Corner Snorer, and he had a good snore in the middle of the night. The Meseta, which is the kind of fields of gold between Leon and Burgos.
For me, it was a beautiful time of introspection.
Lastly, Finisterre.
Finisterre was a moment where a lot of people burn their shoes and things like that. Please don't. It just litters it. But for Finisterre, it was a moment where I sat next to the cross there, right next to the lighthouse, and I just felt like I was sitting on God's lap.
And just before we say goodbye for the final time, Michelle, please tell the listeners where they can find you one more time.
Thank you, Brad. This was so fun. I'm Camino Concierge, and that I am on Instagram, Twitter, and I have a Facebook page, as well as CaminoConcierge.com.
So if they look for Camino Concierge on all of those platforms, they'll find you.
They will. And please reach out and definitely on Instagram. I would love if you tag me on a picture. I will feature you on Insta stories. I love spreading the love and the good news of the Camino.
Yeah, me too as well. And I should thank you for sharing some of my statuses, because you've been very helpful with that and obviously helped the podcast be listened to by more people. So I'm really grateful that you've done that. And I take the same approach as well. This is just, for me at the moment, this is just a hobby. So I'm very much happy to share everyone else's Camino work as well. I mean, no competition with anybody whatsoever. So yeah, it's that. I think that's the nice thing about when we're all back and we can all share and help each other. So I'm really grateful for you in doing that, Michelle. And we've had word association, so I'm going to finish with two more words, and they are Buen Camino.
Buen Camino back to you.